Just in Colombo, thank you. An Iranian court
claimed thousands of pounds for renovations to her London home after she complained about Artex ceilings and strange plumbing. She says her claim and written requests were within the rules.
Is this business of flipping?
Opposition parties are urging reform too, but have not condemned the claims of ministers. Their receipts are still to come.
There's a danger in all of this. And I think it's, first of all, that people lose faith in the political system as a whole, which I think is a tragedy, and I think it would be an overreaction.
And now condemnation from a former Archbishop of Canterbury.
It does reveal that there is a culture of greed around in our society, and sadly politicians should transcend this in order to get on with the job of representing us.
MPs know that voters are indignant about their expenses, but apart from promising reform, there's nothing they can do for now except wait for more revelations. Ben Wright, BBC News.
Let's return now to MPs' expenses. The Daily Telegraph, of course, has been revealing details for the last 3 or 4 days about the expenses of several MPs and ministers. They include the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Sean Woodward. The paper alleges that Mr Woodward, one of the richest members of the Cabinet, claimed tens of thousands of pounds to help cover his mortgage interest payments, as well as claiming for some food items for his staff. Well, Sean Woodward has been speaking on the Politics Show in Belfast. He said a transparent system was essential now to move forward.
I think the public look at us right now. They think we've all got our noses in the trough. Our profession looks shameful. It's embarrassing. And right now, if I try and make almost any defence of our collective position or my position, it looks terrible. But, you know, I've just had a cup of tea in the green room here getting ready for this programme, and there were biscuits next to the makeup tray. Now, the BBC is funded by the taxpayer. Those biscuits were actually paid for by a taxpayer. I have in my office claimed for biscuits for my constituents. So my constituents shouldn't have biscuits, but someone coming on this programme should. I mean, I think the point is, what we've got to look at here is not just MPs' expenses, and my goodness we have. And I am really embarrassed by all of this for all of us in the House of Commons. But we've got to look at how taxpayers' money is spent generally. So that means I think you should have the right to look at every single one of my receipts, and you can have them as soon as you want. But secondly, any organisation, the BBC, funded by the taxpayer, why shouldn't also the taxpayer say, Jim, let's have your receipts tomorrow, the programme editor's receipts? Because I think actually they've rightly said they want transparency. So I think MPs should put their hands up, admit their mistakes where they've made them. But I also think other public organisations funded by the public, they also have a right to open up the books. That would be good for our democracy.
Sean Woodward speaking on the Politics Show, Belfast. Well, let's talk now to Sir Paul Judge. He's a former Director General of the Conservative Party who now runs the jury team. That's a political movement aimed at getting more independent MPs into Parliament. They've got several candidates standing for the European elections, and there's nothing to do, I think, as you were saying, with the Conservative Party now. Can MPs really be called honourable anymore?
I don't think the British public thinks they're honourable at all. All the revelations in the last few days piled upon all the expenses, revelations of the last year or two, and the vote last July when they refused even to contemplate small reforms to the John Lewis list. That was one of the things that really motivated me, that really made me feel that the system now is institutionally corrupt.
And this announcement by Sir Stuart Bell about an independent inquiry and independent auditing of expenses, is that going to make any difference?
I think it's shutting stable doors after horses have bolted. And what we need to do is deal with the horses. And we have a phrase, if the turkeys won't vote for Christmas and won't vote for the taxpayer, we need to change the turkeys. And that's why the jury team is encouraging new people to come into politics. And as you say, we're standing 60 candidates in the European Parliament election on the 4th of June. Our mission is better governance, to have independent MPs, to treat MPs as civil servants, to have an independent politicians' complaints commission, rather like the independent police complaints commission, and to make sure that MPs and MEPs have term limits so they don't just go native in Parliament.
So would this mean total transparency on expenses? Would you advocate scrapping the additional costs allowance?
There is no reason for them to be treated other than anybody else in the country. Many business people, many public servants have to spend time away from home. I was on a BBC phone-in night or two ago. A lorry driver phoned in. He has to spend 4 nights a week in his cab he gets £18 a night for doing that. That's it. There's no reason they aren't treated like civil servants, have to provide receipts, and they only get money back if they've spent some money.
Why is it, do you think, that MPs really don't seem to get it at the moment about this public anger? They all say, oh, well, the system is to blame, but there's no personal contrition there at all. What is it from your time as Director General of the Conservative Party that has led to that sort of culture?
Well, the Westminster village, the political class, have become just so complacent. Most MPs will never lose their seats. Even whatever the swing is in a normal election, only about a fifth of the MPs are at threat. The other 80% can go on till they want to retire. It's a job for life. In that system, it means there really is no need to worry about the constituents. We did a survey. 86% of the British people think that the politicians vote for themselves or their party when they vote. Only 13% for the country or their constituents. We've got to change that. We've got to get new turkeys into Parliament.
The spirit of this, as you say, if not the letter, it seems wrong. Do you think people should be forced to pay back any personal profit they've made,
I
for
do,
example?
and we're currently looking at a legal mechanism, a judicial review, that would force all of this into the open, into the courts, because although the MPs say they obeyed the rules, they're talking about what is known as Chapter 2 of the Green Book. Chapter 1 of the Green Book is quite clear that the expenses can only be if it's wholly, exclusively used for the business in hand and necessarily required for the job. We're quite clear that a judicial review would say that hasn't happened. A judicial review would say that public money has been wrongly used. And so that's really what we're doing. Our candidates have already written to the Inland Revenue. I was in the Times, I had my letter published about 2 weeks ago, which first called for the Inland Revenue to investigate MPs, and they are now doing that, which is excellent. So the other strand is that we now have a judicial review, because it is public money and it was public officials that made those decisions.
OK, so Paul Judge, thank you very much indeed for coming and talking to us. Let's